How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
This message is brought to you by Abercrombie Kids, where the activewear is made for every summer activity, so your mini-me can bring their personal best. Summer days are always an adventure, from day camp to rec leagues and pool days. Abercrombie Kids has the shorts, tees, and swim to keep them comfy and keep up with them. Get everything for the entire summer at Abercrombie Kids. Shop in-store, online, or in the app.
This episode is brought to you by Heyday. Feeling stressed? Take a moment for yourself with Heyday. Stroll through rows of golden wheat, tend to cute barnyard animals, and discover the joys of a digital farm retreat. You don't have to hop in a car or catch a plane. Escape to the farm at the tap of a finger. With Heyday, you're not just tending to a farm, you're tending to yourself. Heyday. Search Heyday, that's Hay space DAY, in your favorite app store. Heyday is a free-to-play mobile game and offers optional in-app purchases and random rewards.
You have to control yourself!
All right, welcome back to Horror Queers. We are sitting down to chat Clown in a Cornfield with director Eli Craig, as well as the book's author, Adam Cesare. Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's great to be here, guys.
Lovely to have you here. I think it's so. Joe and I are both book readers, so we have read the book and we quite enjoyed the film. I feel like we've been in like a dry area of just fun horror, and it's really nice to see something that's just trying to be fun.
Yeah. So, folks, we're going to jump into this, but we wanted to frame it that we're going to be doing some spoilers. We will let you know, but we do encourage you to check out the film in advance, just in case.
Or read the book. Or both.
Read the book. Or both. Yeah.
Both. Go see the movie and then buy the book. You know what I mean? Like you don't have time.
Or you could watch the book and watch the book and read the movie. That's what I recommend.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, read the book first though, because for me, I would rather have like a 90-minute movie spoiled for me than like, an 8-hour read of a book spoiled for me.
That's just.
He wrote this as a script. Adam wanted this adapted for sure. This is like
no, I didn't. No, I did not.
I was gonna say I think the book reads like a movie, not a script. Yeah. It reads like a movie, and I feel like Adam, like you had to have. Like, did you write that thinking like we're gonna make a movie out of this shit, right?
You always, with commercial fiction, you always like it's always like not a consideration, but like a hope so, maybe so kind of thing. Just because there's nothing better for selling books than a movie, but I do think I think I also, to very much refute what Eli said, and to say that he was kidding, I am very much of the opinion that a book is a book and a movie is a movie, and I'm very I think it doesn't happen so much in books, but I can talk shit on comics a little bit. It happens a lot in comics. Like you see comic book projects and graphic novels that like clearly were someone's spec script, that they were just like, oh, I can boot it over into a comic and then that'll make it easier. And those are almost uniformly never good. Like even if it was a good script, they're almost uniformly not good because they don't take into consideration the strengths and weaknesses of the medium that you're working in. So I'm very much, this is the English teacher in me. I'm very much like, no, like a book is a book and a movie is a movie, and they're very different mediums. And they have to be taken into consideration as different mediums. That said, I think maybe what Trace and Joe, you're responding to is this idea that I'm a cinematic person. I'm surrounded by thousands of movies right now. I got movie posters on the walls. Like I love movies more than anything. Like I'm a movie person first because I'm a cinephile. And I think my mind works in movies. And I think the fact that these books are slashers, slasher is an endemically cinematic genre. Like there are great slasher books, but none of them predate, the formalization of slasher as a filmic genre. So I think anyone working in writing a slasher, be they Stephen Graham Jones or Brian McCauley, like they still are viewing it book first, but they're viewing it through the lens of these are film stories.
No,
it's
That's my piece. Sorry. Not to get out my like whiteboard and be like, not to jump down your throat, Eli. I love you, but I needed them to know it was a joke.
Well, let's talk about this as an adaptation because, we have a book club that is tied to the podcast and people have like devoured the trilogy, but it feels like we've been waiting a while for this film. Like the book came out, 2020. The film adaptation was announced pre-release, and then Eli, you were hired in 2022 and it's now 2025. So can you walk us through, like, was there a delay? Is it just like things take time kind of deal?
That's not really a delay. I mean, to me, like if it's made in less than 7 years, that's fast. But, that's honestly, like everything moves so slow in movies until it's just desperately fast. But as far as getting the financing, I mean, I don't know if you remember, but there's kind of a lot of stuff has happened since then. First, we were in the middle of a pandemic.
Right. Yeah.
But then like there was a strike and there was just a lot of, the industry's been so upended. And we did, when I attached to this, we did run around a bit and try to get a studio involved that was going to finance it. It didn't happen right off the bat. And so we ran out and got indie financing, and we were able to put this together through just independent means. And we kind of, it was always in my mind, like, I got to get this made. I got to get it made. But, you're talking to the guy who still hasn't made Tucker and Dale 2. So the timeline,
no,
the timeline could be long.
I'm glad that you said like less than 7 years, because I was like, okay, you've made 3 films and it's a 7-year gap between the first 2 and an 8-year gap between these. So why the fuck is it taking you so long to make more movies?
Because I'm like a cicada. I like, once I come out and I blossom and I devour the land with my cicada-like personality, then I just settle back down. I cocoon and I wait for 7 years. So, Adam, we're going to have a kick-ass sequel.
Oh, yeah. I'll see you in 7 years.
7 years.
Oh, my God. If you make us wait 7 years for the sequel, we may have to track you down.
I know. That's why I'm not on social media. I have too many people trying to kill me. It's the industry. I could go into the weeds on the industry and some of the battles I've had. Look, I love, like, horror with a bit of comedy in it. And this film is more horror first. Like, this is my first film. I'm going horror, and I'm going to have some elements that are me and really just comedic, like breakouts. Like, they kind of stand apart from the horror part. After I did Tucker and Dale, I wrote a bunch of comedy scripts, right? And comedy is murder to get made nowadays. So I get them set up in the studio, whatever. It takes a long time. And then they fall apart. And then you just realize you spent 2 years of your life on something that is not happening. Yeah. And you're like, and then also, there's a bunch of reasons, but, let's focus on what I just did.
Well, focus on the good. Yeah.
Okay. Well, how about this question? Because I remember, so when I first picked up the book, I was like, oh, it's a YA book. And I feel like Joe always gets mad at me.
He's so dismissive of it, and I hate it.
I'm not dismissive of YA. But
Joe.
Joe has a YA podcast that he does separately, where he regularly reads it. And I'll be like, oh, I feel like people have an immediate idea. There's a stigma around YA. Yeah. And so even when I was reading some pre-release reviews for the film, it was like, oh yeah, it's a YA book that they've turned into this really gory slasher film. And I'm like, tell me you didn't read the book without telling me you didn't read the book.
Yeah.
But I guess, was there ever discussion about toning down the violence, making this a PG-13 horror film?
Well, let me ask you, did you guys think it was too violent?
No.
But
the violence is really good, but
great.
We were surprised that there was as much as there was, because it felt like there could have been a danger of people saying, well, just, hint at the violence. We don't need to see a girl get smashed into a window or a light frame.
It was very clear that you were not aiming for a PG-13. Like, there's no way this movie in its final version was going to get a PG-13. But I just feel like, again, it's talking about difficulty getting the film made, like things falling through. That had to have been a conversation at some point. Or maybe
I think that became less of a conversation once it got passed on by the studios, right? And that's sort of the joy of doing an independent film, is eventually the producers are too busy. It feels like a really small project. It'll probably never see the light of day. Just let Eli go do this. And then you really get to make the movie you want to make. And so there's consequences to like going to make your movie with, Warner Brothers or something, and they want it to fit into exactly this niche. And this probably would have been maybe PG-13, probably PG-13 if I had made it with some of the studios we pitched to. But once I got my hands on it to do on an indie level, look, I'm just trying to make movies that make me happy, man, that I want to see. And I'm going to push it as hard as I can until it kind of makes me uncomfortable. And so the violence felt like, first of all, Adam wrote a really gory YA book. Like, I don't know why everybody has to call it YA, except for that it's about Gen Z. It's also works as adult horror fiction. So I wanted to honor that. And I also just wanted to, I really like defying people's expectations. It starts with the title of the film. Yeah. It starts with it ends with it's YA. This is not really a YA movie, but it is also made for young teens. Yeah. So, I consider this like an entryway or like a gateway horror drug film where you watch this one.
For sure.
And I hope I hope that kids remember this someday, and like in 20 years somebody's making a movie and saying, that first time I saw Clown in a Cornfield and I was only 12 and it disturbed me. It fucked me up, but I wanted to make horror films.
It's a slumber party movie. Like that's how I would classify it.
That's a great way.
It's with a bunch of like teen girls or boys, I guess. Do boys have slumber parties? Is a thing? Like they didn't have it when I was a kid. Maybe they do it now. But no, it's this is what you discover when your parents won't let you watch these kind of movies, but your friends let you see it at their houses.
Yeah.
I think there's it walks such a great line, and that's what's so great about it is it works as YA and it works as adult film. I think the books are dyed in the wool. Like, correct me, Joe, if I'm wrong, but I feel like I try to do everything that is expected in the genre, or that is like I want to respect the genre that I'm writing in. I don't want to be like a YA carpetbagger, So like I do want to like play in the sandbox nicely, even though the sandbox now has changed in the last 10 years, has changed in the last 15 years. The sandbox allows a bunch of beheadings. The sandbox allows you to kill someone with a copier machine. Like the sandbox allows and I think, just not to get us too off base, but I do want to classify or clarify that for the listeners who are hearing this like independent. It's an independently funded film. It's still like it's still made by Temple Hill. Like, it's still made by the people who made Smile and Smile 2 and all these big movies. Like, just made without a studio's backing. Like, it is. Yeah. This is not. Eli's not getting his mini DV camcorder out. Like, this is a big movie, but just happens to be a big indie. You'd be surprised. I had my mini DV camcorder a few times in the shoot. Oh, I know they were there. I know they were on set. Yeah.
Well, are y'all allowed to say what the budget is or was for this film?
Well, you can find that out long past this movie's out. Yeah. You can find out. But I think the important thing is how the movie plays. Like I think people talk too much about budget and box office. Like, my son and I have been on this thing. Like, why does it matter? Like, why is Variety always reporting on what the box office is of a film, as if that affects the quality of the film? Like, we should be interested in the art. Like, let's care about how much we like this movie, and not so much like, how did the film do? We care how iPhone 15 did? Or I don't know. It just feels like
it's different kinds of fans. Like, people, there are two different camps, and there are also like, even the camp that prizes art first, I think, sees it as like social validation of like, oh, well, my horse is doing well. Cause it's like, it's hard to say that. Like, I say like, well, why, we shouldn't be treating it like it's a stock market. We shouldn't be treating it like, this shouldn't be like a financial podcast for fans who are like, who are just like, oh, well, what's going to make 100 million, 200 million and stuff like that. Like, I think that's like a weird part of fandom and a weird part of the industry. That said, I was watching The Sinners, take in, it was like I was Ryan Coogler's son, like I was watching it because I felt a great social validation to be like, God damn, a good movie did well, it made me feel good. There is there is both. Like, I love movies more than anything. Movies are my church, but I still like understand the financials of it, and it feels good when a good movie wins. You feel good.
Yeah.
I think for me, and this isn't a way of me sneakily trying to get you to reveal the budget. I'll wait. It's totally fine. I think for me though, for horror films specifically, especially gory horror films, when CGI blood is so copious in a lot of studio horror films you see nowadays that have a lot of money, it's more for me a kind of a thing where it's like I think I see a lot of things in here in what I believe is a lower budget film, but like things that you're putting in this in Clown in a Cornfield that studio films don't do because they're cutting corners. And so I think that's really impressive.
Well, thank you. And I think that I love sort of having boundaries, right? Like I love having these guardrails, and I consider budget one of them. And then you try to come up with really creative ways to tell the story you're telling in the best way possible with the budget you have. And this, I wanted this movie to feel like a throwback, 80s, maybe 90s slasher, where maybe a lot of those movies didn't have a lot of budget, a huge budget. And you're able to do so much with practical effects that genuinely, to me, not only play better, they help the cast react better.
Yeah.
People, the cast suddenly starts feeling like this is real, and you get really genuine responses as opposed to doing the thing where you're like, you're in a green suit.
React to the tennis ball. It's blood.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a kill in this movie. It's not a spoiler to say that involved you guys putting new supports in a house and like dragging someone up through a ceiling. Like that kill kills. Like we just saw it at South by Southwest. We saw it at Overlook. That kill kills. And what people are reacting to is not just the mechanics of it. They're not reacting to the set piece itself. Like the storyboard of, pitchfork here, light here, ceiling here. They're not reacting to that. They're reacting to you yanking someone through that thing, there's almost like a visceral. There's like a reason that like the Jackass movies are so good, and there's a reason that you react the way you do to them, even when they're disgusting or even when they're off-putting. The way that you have a laugh response to something like that, where you're just like, oh, it's why there are a million fight videos online, and I will never scroll past one. Like it's it's like that idea of like that's. It was what we're hardwired to do as people. Like, so like that, if it's a budget thing or if it's a creative thing, it doesn't matter. The fact that you did it, that seemed better. Like,
yeah.
So we've got a couple of different directions. I'm mindful of time. So were there any key things that the two of you looked at the book and said, regardless of what happens, regardless of the budget, who gets involved, these scenes have to be carried over? And then I wonder if we can also attach a little bit of the queerness to that, because of course we are a queer horror podcast. We would love to know whether the Cole Russ element was always something where you were like, we cannot lose that. That's vitally important.
So I'll speak to that, just because unfortunately it's like in the movie making process, sometimes the writer of the book isn't always like included in the early discussions. Right. I did include Adam in some of them, but my pitch to them, the script I had gotten, and I was like, oh, there's interesting parts of this, did not have the Colin Rust element to it.
Really?
It had pulled that, and it was not there.
Huh.
And when I read the book, I was like, oh, this is sort of what the movie is. Like, this is a huge, like, they were both straight, and it was a strange thing to pull. And so I was like, this is like the thing I was pitching studios and whatnot. I was like, that's the part I really need in this movie. And I knew I was going to set it up as like the red herring of Cole. Right. And I wanted to play the twist of it so that the audience, I needed really straight feeling characters. There was nothing like that you would suppose that these guys might be.
Because they're masculine presenting.
Yeah, very much so, yeah. And so that was really important in casting, and also that Cole was like battling with his sexuality and his understanding of, he comes from this small town, like he doesn't really want to be gay. He is, but he's really struggling with that, and he wants to be attracted to Quinn. Mm-hmm. He wants to be with her. He wants to be the guy that like gets with girls and whatnot, and he's just not. And he's friends with her, but he's not. And so that seemed to me like a really great, this is spoiler stuff, but he really great moment to play the reversal, because I have my youngest brother is openly out. And I watched him come out, and I always knew because he's 15 years younger than me. And I always kind of knew he was gay, like from the youngest age. And the whole family kind of did. But I watched him really struggle with it when he was 15, 16 years old. And when he did finally like sort of come out to the family, it was a big deal. It was really hard for him. And we're like, yeah, dude, it's fine. We all kind of know. And it was disappointing to him that we all knew.
Yeah.
He felt hurt. He felt like, well, what if I betrayed? Like, how am I not seen this
way? How come they saw through my facade? That was literally my coming out experience as well.
Yeah. And it really hurt him. It hurt him that I was like blasé about it. He wanted a reaction that was like, I was like devastated or something.
Shocked or something. Yeah.
And so, you know, Sam is he's actually pretty outspoken in the gay community, and he's wonderful. He's like Sam Greisman. And he kind of like, his story made me like want this story to be a part of it. Like it became very important. I don't see a lot of really popular, you know, slasher horror movies that this element's in there. Especially with a big release like this and that aren't like specifically LGBTQ like stories. Like this is an element of the story, but it's not like, that's not the story. Right. And that to me is sort of more important because this is the way our lives are. Yeah. Like people you don't expect are gay. And so what? Like, let's just, and sometimes they kiss each other. And so what?
And sometimes they can still get nearly murdered by clown.
I would love, before we leave this, I just want to flag that I would love to speak to this from my side of the movie perspective. Like, I don't want to interrupt, but I just like, we haven't talked about this on a podcast yet. And I was never really planning on talking about it at all, that idea of that first draft. But I have alluded to, like, because people ask, you know, in interviews, like, what is your, you know, did you have any input on the script? Or did you have any, like, you know, and I remember even, I think it was pre-Eli's involvement, like I had gotten that version of the script that Eli had been sent. And I was like, you know, because it's a late reveal in the book. And I'm like, Cole and Rust are going to be intact in this, right? And I like, there were plenty of stuff different from the book and that script. And I kind of liked it. And I was kind of like, I could vibe with this. It's different from my book. And then I was getting close to like the end, and I was getting like, I'm like,
where is it?
Like,
where is it?
Like, what the fuck? And you know, it's similar to Eli's reaction, but even a little bit more intimate for me. Like, I was like, that's fucking crazy. Like, you guys can't do that. Like, I was like, that was, I liked it. My little jokey answer that I've been doing on podcasts has been like, well, I only had one note on the script and I got it through, you know? So like, I like to say I got 100% of my notes. But on the other side, like Eli, like is the co-writer. He wrote that back in, and I thank him every day. I thought like the first time I met him, I thanked him for writing that back in and being like that. Wouldn't be able to do podcasts like this. I wouldn't be able to affect, you know, I wouldn't be able to pretend I love the movie because I love the movie. I wouldn't be able to go out and say that because I'm like, that's not Cole and Rust. Like, those aren't my characters. And I actually, what Eli's talking about, that idea of placing him against Quinn in a way that I don't in the book. I was very surprised the first time I saw the movie because I hadn't read Eli's script. I'm like, did they just lie to me and they didn't do it? So when they're making out, I'm like, oh my God. Like, I was like, but I love that element of it. As I've gotten to rewatch the film, it's the one thing from the movie that I actually, like, if I were going to George Lucas something, I would actually add that element in because I love that element, and I love even that you move the reveal earlier and the way that you do it, and I love those actors playing Cole and Rust. They're just like, they're more prominent in book 2, so like they're kind of like bigger sequel characters, like, and I get to really explore them more. They're kind of co-heads with Quinn in part 2, but so it's interesting now because we're doing all this press for the movie. We haven't talked about back half stuff, so I don't really want to talk about it, but the book was, I wrote these books because I was a teacher and I was seeing, I loved, like, my kids that I like to be in classrooms with 11th and 12th graders, and they're dealing with all this stuff, and I wanted to, and I was seeing a lack of authenticity in the ways that some of these items have been presented, some of these ideas have been presented. But now, 5 years later, I've signed books where, one of my favorite interactions I've ever had with a reader was, he was vending at the booth next to us. So we kind of like looked at each other the whole time, just very, very tatted up guy, like gauged ears, and like he was at a tattoo parlor. He was like tattooing someone, and then he came over to me and he had this like kind of sneer on his face, and I was like, what am I about to get into? Like, because there's political stuff in the books too.
Yes.
That like I'm like, am I gonna get like fucking talk radio? Is this guy gonna like kill me in the parking lot or something like that? Maybe. And then he goes, he takes his own copy of Clown in the Cornfield out of his bag, and he says, I just really wanted to thank you for Colin Rust. It's exactly my husband and I's story. And he asked me to sign the book, and I gave him a hug, and I was like, wow, I went from thinking I was about to get my ass kicked to it was very important to me. And I was very vocal about it on my end, and I know that Eli was vocal about it on his end, and it became part of his kind of, pitch for the film, for the take on the film. And it's just so I thank him every day, and I thank him all the time for that. Yeah.
All right. I think unfortunately we're out of time. So Trace, do you want to hit that last one?
Yes, Eli. I think us and all of our readers would love to know. Could you please tell us a little bit about your experience filming The Rage Carrie 2?
Oh my God. That is such a fun question. So many people don't know that I had this little stint with acting when I was younger, in my early 20s. And let's talk specifically about Carrie 2, because it's my first acting job. I still look incredibly young, and young enough to be playing a high school senior in Carrie 2, The Rage. And it's my first acting job, but I'd also been doing all this mountaineering and like guiding on these big mountain peaks like Denali and Aconcagua. And it felt so surreal to me, because I felt so like mature compared to all these kids I was working with. Some of them I'm friends with to this day, but I had a mold made of my head at the time. Back then it was even worse than it is today, but they put all this like paper mache, like plastic. They put a couple of straws in your nose so you can breathe through your nose while they cover your entire mouth and face to make a mold of your head so that my head could get chopped off. And that was like the part of the script. I was like, well, of course I want to do this movie. I'm going to have a mold of my head made and get my head chopped off. I'm a little claustrophobic, so that experience was quite scary. But I had that done. And then I found out, I didn't read the detail in the script, that we all shave our heads before that happens. And I was like, well, we'll all wear bald caps, right? No, we all like shaved our heads completely. And then had this thing made of my head. I was like, literally remember shaving my head. I was like, I don't know if I like being an actor. Like, how can they just do this? They just put this in the script. They shave their heads, one line. And then in the final sequence, like I think it's a DVD flies through the air, and like
it's CDs.
It's CDs. Yes, of course.
It's the 90s, baby.
Yeah, and that's so dated. See, I'm so old. And then it chops my head off, and I just was so glad to pay it forward to this time in Clown in a Cornfield. I get to pay it forward and chop someone else's head off. Mm-hmm. And Alex gets his head chopped off. And then, I get to throw it into a beer cooler. Mm-hmm. And I find myself to be very active on set as a director when I'm doing those kind of things. I'm like, let me do it, guys. I don't think anybody can handle this like head throw like me.
I've done this before. I've done this before. I've sent heads rolling. So I was like, it is quite ironic that this is like full circle to when I was as the same age as my actors in this movie. And I think about how that movie, though I didn't realize it at the time, kind of changed my life, kind of made me feel like, well, I do like being on set, and I hate being controlled on set and being told what to do. And I want to have creative freedom. I remember I would rewrite scenes for them. And I was like, the dialogue here sucks, guys. And I walked up to the director and the writer with like 5 pages of like goodwill dialogue, like back and forth banter. And I was always, back then, even I felt like I was really good at like banter. And I showed it to them, and they were so upset. They were like, how dare this actor come up to me with pages? And
I could see them just like sneering at it. And I thought, well, what a bunch of assholes, like that was good dialogue. And to this day, it's like, to me, it's if some young actor does come up to me with pages, it's very rare that they're that bold. But Katie did, Katie's who
I was just about to bring it up. We on the commentary you talked about
Katie
that.
is not she wasn't like, number like 42 on the call sheet like I was. But she came up and she said, I don't think this scene works. And we talked it out. And she had a really good this is the scene on the stairs where she's yelling at Dad.
Oh, that's such a good scene.
Yeah, that's like a really crucial scene.
Yeah. And she said some of the dialogue, it just wasn't feeling real to her. And she kind of told me what she wanted to say. And I said, do you think you could write it down? And so she wrote me, but it was like a page, she wrote me almost a full page.
A monologue.
Monologue. And I was like, well, there's a lot of good stuff in here, but I trimmed it down a bit. And then on set the next day, I sent her that pages and she's like, oh, this is this I can take a bite out of. And I always find that collaboration with actors, because sometimes even if the dialogue's good, it's not the way they would say it. And so that movie taught me a lot. And I'll leave you with one other movie that taught me a lot. Can I? Do you have a second?
Yeah.
The sort of the last sort of bigger movie I was in before I decided to pull the ripcord entirely on acting was I was in Space Cowboys, and I played young Tommy Lee Jones in Clint Eastwood's movie Space Cowboys. And if you watch the opening, I'm in it, but it's not great. But I was at that point. I was at that point realizing I really wanted to be doing like what Clint Eastwood was doing and be directing and be writing. And I'd already written a script. I'd optioned it with Tom Cruise's company. And there were things happening in that world for me. And I was like, I hate being, I was a meat puppet. I felt sometimes like people just wanted me to stand a certain way, say a certain line a certain way, and then get out of their way. And I was always kind of bopping around next to Clint Eastwood, like standing next to him, watching what he was doing. And at one point he turns around, he looks at me and he says, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm an actor in your movie. Like, you don't remember I was just on set with you." And he's like, "No, what are you doing in life?" And I said, I don't really know. I really want to someday be doing what you're doing." And he looked at me with this like Clint Eastwood gaze that like looks through your soul. And he said, "Well, then go do it." And then he turns around and he doesn't say action. He just says on set, he says, "Go ahead." And with a lot of authority. So he says, "Go do it." And he turns, he says, "Go ahead." And the actors start their scene. And I was having this existential moment as the actors are playing out. He's like, "Go do it. Clint Eastwood told me to go do it. I better go make movies." Anyway, that led to me applying to film school and a lot of hard work. And
that's the raddest shit I've ever heard.
Awesome.
You owe your career to Clint Eastwood.
But then I'll just finish the story with he dubbed over all my lines. Tommy Lee Jones dubbed over me.
Oh,
and also Clint Eastwood's young character playing Clint Eastwood got dubbed over, and all the young characters in that movie got dubbed over.
What a terrible! I hate it.
Cromwell, everything. So it was quite embarrassing too. And I was like, okay, peace out on the acting front.
I'm done.
I'm gonna give a good run at having a little more control over the way stories are told.
There we go. I love that. All right. Well, Adam and Eli, thank you so much for giving us a very generous amount of your time. And thanks again for the movie. We look forward to talking with you again in 2 to 3 years when you're producing the sequel, please.
Sometimes cicadas, they get a warm front or something and they emerge from the ground earlier. Okay. Devouring the cornfields.
Oh, okay.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
And
Trace, thank you. It's been 3 months of press, and I haven't worked up the courage to ask Eli about The Rage. So thank you for.
I host Terror Tuesday screenings at the Alamo here in Denver, and I screened Carrie 2 a couple months ago. Played by gangbusters, by the way, but
still a good movie. Good movie.
Yeah, amazing.
Well, thank you all so much.
Thank you guys. Thank you.